10. I've been thrown in at the deep end, everyone. I was asked to chair about 15 minutes ago. I haven't done this for a while, so please bear with me. Right, okay. We're going to agree the minutes of the last meeting first. Declarations of interest. Allow me to introduce everyone. My name is Alexander Binder. We have on the committee Councillor Link and Councillor Tyndall. The officers are Kim Knight and Phil Nolan. To my left, we have Legal Services, Nargis Sultan, and to my right, Member Support. Okay, Kim, if you'd like to start off.
Thank you. So you have before you an application for a full variation to the premises licence held at the Old Mill, London Road in Berkhamsted, HB4 2MB. The application originally sought to make these following changes: to change the layout and the design of the plan of the premises, to permit the sale of alcohol from 9 AM daily, which is currently 10, to permit the sale of alcohol, recorded music and late night refreshment until midnight on Christmas Eve, to permit the sale of alcohol, recorded music and late night refreshment until 3:30 AM on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, to permit the premises to open until 12:30 on Christmas Eve and 3:30 on New Year's Eve/day, to add a new condition to the licence regarding the garden bar, and to amend condition 5.3, which relates to the protection of children from harm. Now, since this application has been put in, the applicant and their agent have been liaising with the people who have put in representations. So we did have 4. One has now been withdrawn on speaking to the agent and the applicants. So we've, since this has happened, since received an email from the applicant's agent to say that they will now finish serving alcohol at 1 AM with customers to leave the premises by 1:30 on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. So just to bear that one in mind for the committee. So the application for this is set out in the report pack at pages 16 to 37. There are still the 4 representations included in that pack at the moment because the person only withdrew very late yesterday evening. They're set out on pages 38 to 41. The applicant and all persons who made representations have been invited to attend today's meeting to address the committee, and details of those speaking and their submissions have been forwarded to members ahead of the meeting. Options available to the committee today are set out at paragraph 4.1 of the introductory section of the report, which is on page 7 of the bundle. The committee are reminded that the application must be considered on its own merits and that any steps taken must be considered appropriate in order to promote one or more of the licensing objectives, and that full and clear reasons should be given to why the decision has been reached. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions to the officers? Microphone.
I've got a question to the applicant, Holly.
No problem. Right, okay, I haven't got any questions. Do we have representation from the applicant?
Here we go. I love technology. Doesn't it make our lives so much easier? I'm representing the applicant today, and I have with me some parties who can answer any questions. If you'd like me to introduce us all, if that would assist. My name is Piers Warren from TLT Solicitors, and I represent the applicant. Next to me is Kat, who is the manager in DPS. Next to her is Dick, who is the head of Morgan Pub Company, who run this fine establishment. And then at the end is Barry Aspinall, who is the business development manager from Green King, who are the ultimate license holders.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
May I note that...
Sorry, just 1 second. I do apologise. Do you want to do your submissions now? Sorry.
Yes, if I'm invited to, that'd be fantastic. And I probably won't take any more than 10 minutes of your time, I would hope. I'm really pleased to hear one representation's been withdrawn. You'll have noticed there were 4, 2 of which were very similar. And we have had some discussions with one of the parties. I don't know whether they're the ones who have withdrawn, but it is actually one of those applications where we get to say, as you'll have seen from the representation, all the parties are fairly convivial, and there is quite a lot of goodwill towards the pub, and the concerns that were raised are very specific. So I'll deal with those. The application, as has been set out by Kim, can be found at page 8. There's various parts to it. Very quickly, so there's the extension, there's the bar in the garden that we're looking to license. It's worth noting that the garden is already licensed itself, so it's effectively to put a structure within the garden, and I'll talk about that in a minute. A Christmas Eve extension to midnight, which candidly would only affect the hours Sunday to Thursday, because the pub already has a license to trade till midnight Friday and Saturday, with half an hour drinking up time thereafter. New Year's Eve, as you've heard, has been amended twice, so you'll have seen our letter that we sent out to the residents in the pack, hopefully from the 23rd of May. We suggested then we'd amend it to 2. That's now been amended to 1 following a meeting last week Kat had with 2 of the residents there. And then there is an amendment which is administrative to a condition about challenge policy. So at the moment there's a condition that says a challenge 21 policy must be adhered to. And then we've added in something around what's going to come into effect later this year around digital ID, which will be allowed for age verification of sales of alcohol. So we're just basically future-proofing the license there. I would suggest actually we can change that challenge 21 to 25, because you'll have seen the comment from the trading standards officer. That's already operated at the premises. So just for clarity, it might make sense to amend that to challenge 25. And then the final bit is this early opening, 1 hour extra opening, and then an hour extra earlier in the morning for sales of alcohol. Now, the reality is those last 2 parts, I don't think anyone's made any objection to, so I won't bother addressing those unless anyone has an urgent desire to hear from me on those points. But it's worth actually considering what we're not doing here in light of the representation. So we're not extending the licensable area. So the garden is already licensed for sale of alcohol. So we're not extending that. We're just plonking a structure in there. The bar is in a horse box. And I'll show you the location of it on a plan in a minute. But actually, it's already on site and has been used by temporary event notices last summer. So there is already a track record and history of using that horse box without complaints. We're not removing any car parking. I know there was a mention of that. Just for historical context, what was referred to as a car park becoming a garden prior to that was a garden. So it was a garden, it became a car park. It was taken back to being a garden, but we're not changing any of the car parking facilities at the site. We're not amending other seasonal variations. So you'll have seen reference in one of the representations to Mondays of bank holidays, etc. We're not amending any of those. Extensions were already permitted on the face of the license you'll have seen anyway, so none of that. And we're not looking to amend any of the conditions on the license around the use of the garden. So there's already conditions there that we have to close the garden at 11:30 at night, various other conditions of that sort that you can see in the license. So we're not amending any of that. It's worth just very quickly touching on the pub. This was when it was taken over in last year, late spring last year, by Kat and her father and their business. Very run down. It had run as quite a successful pub some years earlier, and then a succession of tenants unfortunately found it very difficult to operate. COVID didn't help, of course. It's a big site with big gardens, and that takes a lot of upkeep. And I'm afraid the last tenants just found themselves, I think it'd be fair to say, and Barry wasn't involved, it wasn't his site at the time, but they were a bit out of their depth, and when they left, the place was in a pretty awful state. So it took around £400,000 plus to get the pub up to the standard it is now. So very considerable investment. It opened in July 2024, and it's been very successful. And I don't think we should make any apologies for being a successful business, from what it was and bringing it back to its former glory. It now employs 15 people, which is fantastic. And indeed, it is used by lots of regulars, and lots of the residents do come to the pub regularly, including, as you'll have seen from the representation, some people who mentioned that in their reps. We like coming to the pub. It's a nice pub. So that's always very positive to see. So that, if you like, is a bit of background. The garden bar, as I say, is already licensed. It's in a horse box. If you look at the plan on page 36 of the pack, if you have that in front of you, I guess you all do it online nowadays, don't you? You have to scroll through these things, but hopefully your page numbering is the same as my old school printed version. Just waiting. If you have the plan, so you'll see the garden at the top of the plan. Sorry. There you go. Yeah. So in the garden, you'll see the garden's at the top of the plan. It's got a red line around it, so it's already licensed. In the middle, at the top, you'll see it looks like a horse box. You can see it, sort of that black outlined box. So that's where the garden bar is. So you'll see, if you then turn over the page, which is a location plan, it sits slap bang between the houses to the north of it and to the south of it. So it's right in the middle of the site. So where one of the residents raises a concern saying we're moving it somewhere else nearer their boundary, that's not the case. That's where it's going to stay. That's where it is on the plan. So I thought that was useful just to clarify that for you. We've shown some photos of it in the presenter. I don't intend to take you through those because you'll have seen it and you'll have seen the letter. But here we go. The point I think I'd want to make about the outside bar is actually experience shows these things promote the licensing objectives for two very important reasons. One is that there is a point of constant supervision. And you'll have seen we've mirrored this in a condition already that we offered as part of the application. When it's open, someone has to be in that bar. That means there's someone always overlooking the garden who can respond very quickly, react to people if they're not behaving badly, but raising their voices, getting a bit boisterous. Someone's there to deal with that. So from a public nuisance point of view, there is a point of constant supervision. The second point is that it prevents and actually obviates pinch points around doorways and sort of people queuing at the bar. So if you're carrying drinks out, a tray of drinks, through a doorway, there's potential for spillages, slips, breakages, etc. That actually becomes much easier to manage because people who are outside can use the external bar. It's a limited service compared to inside, but it does mean that actually it prevents some of those pinch points. So from a public nuisance point of view, external bars are actually very useful. They don't, I think it's a misnomer to say it means that people drink more. I think that's not proven in any case. People will drink what they will drink. It's just that there is somewhere they can go in addition to the internal bar. So it doesn't change anything from that point of view. It just makes things easier from our point of view in terms of operation. And candidly, of course, it is very useful for us in terms of managing customer flows. You'll have seen in the letter we submitted, we've offered a new condition which goes beyond the application I would submit, but in the spirit of working with residents, we've offered a condition for a garden management plan. You'll have seen that set out in some detail in the condition. The point of that is, of course, that then we can be held accountable to our own standards by officers should there be issues or complaints in the future. The final point to note is, of course, there's no representations from your responsible authorities, and you'll see that listed in page 9. I will, when I make a very short summing up at the end of this process, refer to the reasons why I'm going to be asking you to give that significant weight when it comes to making your determination. But on that note, I think that's all I have to say about this application, and would invite any questions. I think your colleague said he had one, so delighted to assist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I note from the objectors that there was really only one concern that looked of any merit to me, and that is Monday mornings. But I think you answered it. Can I confirm that this application refers to New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve solely alone, which obviously means that the following days of each are bank holidays anyway. And so therefore, this extension of this licence would not involve any additional disturbance to the nearby residents than anything that exists at the moment.
That is exactly right. We're not changing any of the other high days and holidays we already have, and both follow it on to a bank holiday.
That's the only concern I've got. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Linda?
No, I'm fine. That's given me the answer.
Ron, do you want to switch off your microphone? Okay. All right, I've got a couple of questions. Do you have CCTV on the premises?
Yes, CCTV throughout, yes.
And unlike our favourite crime dramas, it works.
It's brand new from the refurb.
And also an incident log.
What is there's an accident?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, so there is a log that they record any incidents and accidents, etc. Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Are we going to go into deliberation now?
So we've got no speakers for objection?
No,
No?
no speakers, no.
So we want to sum up now?
Yeah, okay. Off you go.
Thank you very much. So sort of running through it all, and look, I'll keep this very brief. This is more to remind you of some of the guidance that's relevant to the determination process. So paragraph 9.12, which is at page 77 for your reference of the new February edition of the guidance. Each responsible authority is an expert in their respective field. I mention that because obviously with no representations from any of the responsible authorities, they have weighed this application and deemed that it wouldn't undermine the licensing objectives, and that's why I'm going to ask you to give that significant weight when you make your determination. And paragraph 9.43 requires your determination to be evidence-based. Now, the evidence here actually is of no complaints and no issues that one could raise to an undermining of the licensing objectives, but there is evidence that use of this horse box using tens last year has been very successful without any issues. So the evidence, if you like, I'm going to suggest falls on my side in this matter. Your policy obviously recognises that noise in and of itself isn't a public nuisance, and there is going to be the general hubbub, and there's nothing here to suggest that what happens in the general operation of this pub goes beyond that. There is a good relationship between neighbours, and that's important because if there was an issue, people will talk and hopefully resolve it amongst themselves. And indeed, after the meeting on Friday, additional signage has already gone up over the weekend to try and assist in terms of the residents who came along and spoke. So I hope that gives you confidence in the premises and the operation, and I'm going to submit that you can grant the application as amended without undermining the licensing objective.
Thank you very much. Later, check these guys out. Okay, everyone enjoy the coffee? We've decided to grant the application, and you'll be notified within 5 working days of that decision. That's it. Have a nice week.